So for this video to work well, I would really like for you to follow along with me. So, you need your book, and you need this pulled up in a separate tab or a hard copy. If you want to print it out, that's great. This is on Moodle. It said to open it up into a new window before you started this lesson that the video is in, so hopefully you have it. If not, please take a moment, go back to Moodle, and get it. So here we go. We are looking at page 7 of the book. If you actually open to page 7, you'll see it matches, right? Yes, yes. What you see on the screen is just literally, I took a picture of it to do it digitally. So what we're going to do is find all of these terms on page 7. There's not everything, but I'll show you what we do have, okay? So page 1, all of these words, all of these terms are about the layout of the graphic novel, specifically of the page you're looking at. So all of these terms help us to analyze what's going on. So before we can analyze them, we have to be able to label them. So the first one is just called a panel. I am not going to read this to you. That's for you to do. So I'm just going to go word by word and show you what it looks like. So our first word is panel, and this page alone has 7 panels. So you can see they are all numbered. I numbered them, I don't know. I would say that this is the way I would read the page if you watch the previous video. So we start here, move here, move here. We've got this panel that goes across the page. We're going into this one. He's yelling at these people, and then we get a close-up. So that's the order in which I would read this page. Those are panels. There are 7 panels on this page. All right. Next one is frame. Frame is very literally the lines around the panel. Okay, that's it. So there's one example of a frame on this page. The gutter, space between frames. Okay, the gutter is right here. There are a few other gutters, but here are 2 examples. It's the white space between framed panels. Okay, bleed is next. And while this page does not have a traditional bleed, I would still be okay with you saying that the panel number 2, top right, bleeds out of the frame. Because as you can see, the illustration is not boxed in by a frame. So I would say that's bleeding out. Panel number 4 is arguable because it does go from edge to edge of the page, but typically it would be something like panel number 4 like bleeding on to the next page, like the picture is continued, and that's not the case here. So for panel number 2, I would say this panel bleeds out of the frame. Okay, and then we're going to look at the next 3 terms all together. So we're looking at foreground, midground, and background. You've probably heard of at least foreground and background. Depending on what you've studied in the past, you may know the word midground already, but we do have an example of that on this page. So if you look at panels 5, 6, and 7, I would say that 5 is the closest to us. 7 is a little bit further away, and then 6 is in the background. So we're looking at the people's faces. When you are right up in somebody's face and you're really super close, chances are they are in the foreground. And then we just step back a little bit, and that's the midground, and we step all the way back, and that's the background. An important thing to note is that you cannot have midground if you don't have foreground and background. Midground has to be in the middle of something. So if you don't have the outsides, how can you have something in the middle? Now, if you look at the actual terms and concept sheet, it does say the panels. So that's what 5, 6, and 7 are doing. However, let's take a look at panel 4. You can see that there are some people closer to us. You can see there are people really far away, and there are people who kind of fill the middle space. You also have the cityscape in the back, and so you could, if you wanted to, you could look at just one panel and describe and analyze the foreground, midground, and background of just one panel and not a collection of panels. Okay, and graphic weight, the last one on this page. Now, I would say that panel number 2 has the most graphic weight because my eye is drawn there. Some pages it is very obvious where the graphic weight is. Some pages there's really not much graphic weight and your eye doesn't go directly to a specific part. But I would say it's even arguable as long as you can make a claim that this panel or these panels XYZ have the most graphic weight, then I'm going to say you're not wrong. As long as you can argue it, as long as you can back it up. Now on to page 2. So page 2 is looking at figures and text. So figures literally like what's being drawn, the people being drawn, and then text literally the words, okay? So by looking at the figures on your chosen page or on your chosen panels, you can read them without having any words, right? So this is once you kind of understand what that even means, you already know how to do it. So if we look at, say, panel number 5, does that guy look like he's having an easy breezy day? I don't think so. So the faces show the troopers are angry and the marchers are, I would say, nervous. We're looking at panel 7. We might be having a few prayers said right then. You can see, if you look in panel number 1, this is a really good example. If you look in panel number 1, he is yelling, but there's nothing necessarily angry about it. You can look at the guy's face in panel number 5, and his eyes are all squinty, and he's very obviously angry. And there's one other piece that you can see in both of those panels that allude to the way these people are feeling. And that's the second piece of this page, of page 2. So looking at the text, captions, speech balloons, and special effects lettering. I will go ahead and tell you there is no special effects lettering on page 7, but there is on, I'm looking at a book, on the next page. So if you look at page 8, look at page 8, there is some special effects lettering. So that's pretty self-explanatory. But if we look at captions and speech balloons, I'll go ahead and tell you, page 7 does not have any captions because all of the text on page 7 are speech balloons and specifically external dialogue because people are talking to other people. Internal dialogue is like a narrator over a movie. It doesn't happen too often in movies anymore, really, but that's kind of the idea. The internal dialogue is talking to the reader, to you. External dialogue are characters talking to one another. So, looking at page 7, all external dialogue on this page, there are 0 captions, and if we look at the jagged speech balloons, we know they're angry. So back to panel number 5. He is yelling and he is angry because the speech balloons are jagged. Panel number 1, he is yelling, but there's no indication that he's angry about it because the speech balloon has a very smooth line encapsulating the text. And there you have it. If you can choose your panels for your paper and be able to call out things like this, your grade will be favorable in that section. So please, please, please ask questions if you have any. Go through the terms and concepts and make sure you can do this when you get to your paper.